The betrayal. The galaxy had once respected humanity. Earth was a proud young world, filled with potential and ambition. But that was before the Galactic Council decided humanity was a threat to the peace of the galaxy. They call humanity primitive, disorganized, and dangerous. The Council had made its decision, and it would not be changed. The Council's leaders gathered in their grand chamber, high above the stars, in the center of their powerful citadel. There, they debated their most recent decision. The leaders of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had long looked down on Earth's people. They saw humans as nothing more than a growing nuisance, a species that would soon destroy itself if not kept in check. The Council felt the time had come to remove the threat once and for all. It wasn't enough to just isolate Earth. They needed to be cut off entirely. It was a cold, calculated decision. Earth's ships were no longer allowed to leave their solar system. Trade was cut off. Communication with other civilizations stopped. Earth was left to wither in silence. The Council sent their fleets to block the space lanes, and their orders were clear. No human ship was to cross the borders. They believed that this action would force humanity to surrender. The Galactic Council had no idea how wrong they were. On Earth, the people had no idea of the fate the Council had decided for them. Governments were in chaos, unaware that their ships were being stopped by alien fleets. Earth's leaders could do nothing. Communication with the galaxy had been severed, and no one knew why. The people of Earth began to feel the weight of isolation, and fear spread like wildfire. What had happened to the stars? Why couldn't they see the ships of their allies anymore? In the midst of this panic, a young woman named Serena Vasquez, a bright and ambitious officer in the Earth Defense Forces, was one of the few to sense something was wrong. As the days turned into weeks, she saw how the Council's blockade was hurting humanity. Food shortages began to hit Earth, and the economy was on the verge of collapse. Yet, she also saw something that others missed, a flicker of hope in the shadows. Serena knew that if Earth had any hope of surviving this, it would have to be from within. No one was coming to help. The galaxy had turned its back on them. Humanity was alone. She began to investigate the old archives, the places where humanity's history was stored, long forgotten. There, in the dusty corners of ancient bunkers, Serena discovered something that made her blood run cold. The fleet was still there, hidden in a forgotten corner of space. The human warships, ancient and powerful, waited to be called upon. These were the legacy of humanity's ancestors, built for a time of great need, a time when Earth might be abandoned by the galaxy. The fleet had never truly been destroyed. It had only been hidden, preserved in secret. Serena immediately knew what needed to be done. She had to find a way to awaken the fleet, but it wouldn't be easy. The Galactic Council's fleets controlled the space lanes, and there were rumors of hidden weapons and enemies waiting to crush Earth if they dared to resist. But Serena also knew that if humanity didn't rise now, it would never get another chance. As the days passed, she reached out to her fellow officers, those who shared her determination and sense of urgency. Together, they began to work in secret, gathering resources and making plans to rebuild humanity's lost war fleet. They worked under cover of darkness, knowing that if the Council found out, they would be destroyed without mercy. Serena wasn't alone in her mission. She was joined by General Marcus Kane, a man who had led Earth's forces in the early days before the isolation, and Engineer Lydia Park, an expert in the construction of advanced warships. Together, they began the slow and dangerous work of reactivating the fleet. The Council continued their blockade, unaware of the rebellion forming within Earth itself. They were confident that their power was unchallenged. After all, they had the resources of the galaxy at their command. They had the fleets, the technology, and the alliances to crush any resistance. To them, Earth was simply a footnote in the history of the galaxy, a small world that could be ignored and left to fall apart on its own. But humanity, as always, was resilient. As the months passed, Serena and her team made secret contact with several hidden factions within Earth's space stations and colonies. They formed a coalition of those who believed in humanity's right to stand on equal footing with the galaxy. Serena knew that Earth's survival depended on the awakening of the ancient fleet, and it was only a matter of time before the Council's reign of terror would come to an end. One fateful night, Serena stood in the control room of the old command station that had long since been abandoned. The hum of machinery filled the room as the final phase of their plan went into motion. The ancient fleet's engines slowly came to life, and their massive weapons systems powered up for the first time in centuries. Serena's heart raced as she watched the screen flicker to life, displaying the familiar silhouettes of the warships. The fleet was ready. Earth was ready. And the Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. The tables were about to turn. The hum of machinery filled the air as the ancient human warships powered up for the first time in centuries. Serena stood in the command room, her eyes fixed on the massive display in front of her. It was as if the fleet had been asleep for 1,000 years, waiting for the moment when humanity needed it most. She could feel the weight of history on her shoulders, knowing that the next steps would determine whether Earth would survive or fall. Around her, the rest of the team worked tirelessly. General Marcus Kane stood by one of the consoles, his face set in a grim expression. The years of service had taken a toll on him, but now, at this moment, he looked every bit the leader that humanity needed. His voice was low, but filled with authority as he spoke to the team. "We don't have much time. The Galactic Council will notice the power surge. Once they do, they'll send their fleets to destroy us. We need to move quickly." Serena nodded. She understood the urgency. The fleet, dormant for so long, was a massive weapon. Once activated, it could destroy entire star systems. But such power came with a price. The Council had long since believed that humanity no longer possessed such technology, that it had been lost to time. But the fleet had been hidden away, a relic from an era before Earth was abandoned by the rest of the galaxy. "General, we've activated the fleet. But how do we stop the Council from sending their ships to destroy Earth?" Lydia Park, the chief engineer, asked as she worked at one of the consoles. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, her hands moving swiftly over the controls. Marcus turned to her, his expression hard. "We'll have to make them fear us. If we show them what we're capable of, they'll hesitate. Fear is the only thing that will give us the edge." Serena stood quietly, her mind racing. The Council had made the mistake of thinking humanity was weak, helpless, and vulnerable. They had believed that cutting off Earth from the rest of the galaxy would be enough to crush them. But they had miscalculated. Serena knew that once the fleet was fully operational, Earth would have the power to fight back. But the question was, would humanity's enemies allow that to happen? At that moment, the door to the command room opened, and a familiar face appeared. It was Admiral Naomi Hale, one of the last remaining leaders of Earth's space forces, long thought lost during the early days of the blockade. She had arrived just in time to witness the return of humanity's greatest weapon. "Serena, I've been monitoring the fleet's reactivation. It's a miracle. I can't believe it," Admiral Hale said, her voice filled with awe as she gazed at the fleet's ships slowly coming to life. "But what now? What are we going to do next?" Serena took a deep breath. "We fight. We show the galaxy that humanity won't be silenced anymore. We don't want war, but we won't let them destroy us without a fight." Admiral Hale's eyes glinted with determination. "Then it's time we remind the galaxy that Earth is not to be ignored." Serena looked back at the massive warships. They were ancient, yes, but their power was still unrivaled. Humanity had designed these ships to be unstoppable. They were armed with advanced weaponry, shielded by the strongest armor the galaxy had ever known. But there was one more surprise. Hidden within their cores was an ancient technology, a secret weapon capable of turning the tide in any battle. It was a weapon so powerful that no fleet in the galaxy could withstand it. But the secret weapon wasn't ready yet. The fleet needed to be fully operational before it could be activated, and that would take time. Serena turned back to General Kane. "What's the status of the fleet's weapon systems?" Kane looked at the data streaming across the screen. "They're almost ready. The firepower is massive, but we'll need to test the systems before we move out. It's too risky to engage the Council's fleets without being sure everything is in working order." Lydia added, "We've got a small window. The Council won't be able to ignore this power surge for long. Once they detect it, they'll send reinforcements. We need to move fast." Serena looked at her team, her heart pounding. This was the moment that would define Earth's future. They were no longer helpless, no longer weak. The war fleet had returned, and they would use it to strike back at the Council's betrayal. "Set course for the nearest Galactic Council outpost," Serena ordered. "We're going to make them regret ever underestimating humanity." As the fleet powered up and set course for their first mission, the tension in the command room was palpable. Every move now had consequences. Every decision carried the weight of survival. They were walking a dangerous path, but there was no turning back. Earth's fleet was no longer a myth. It was real. And it was coming for the Galactic Council. In the cold depths of space, the Galactic Council's leaders were sitting in their high chambers, unaware of the storm that was about to descend on them. They had been confident. They had believed that humanity was weak, insignificant. But that was before they realized their grave mistake. Before they realized that humanity was not alone. The cryo-sleeping fleet had been reawakened. The warriors of Earth had returned. And this time, they would not be ignored. The war fleet moved through the void of space, its massive engines rumbling like the awakening of a long-dormant beast. The ancient vessels, built in a time when humanity had been at the peak of its power, were now fully operational. Inside the command center of the flagship Eternal Vengeance, Serena stood with her team, watching as the fleet approached the first target, a Galactic Council outpost stationed on the edge of controlled space. The Council had no idea what was coming. Serena knew that the moment they attacked, there would be no turning back. This was the first move in a war that would shake the entire galaxy. The Council had betrayed humanity, cutting Earth off from the rest of the stars, enforcing a blockade that had left the planet isolated and vulnerable. For years, they had watched from their high thrones, believing that humanity was too weak to ever rise again. But they had been wrong. Earth had never given up. It had simply waited. General Kane stood beside her, his arms crossed as he studied the tactical display. The Council's outpost was lightly defended, a small fleet of patrol ships floating near its perimeter. They were not prepared for what was about to hit them. He glanced at Serena and spoke in a low voice. "They don't know we're here yet. We have the advantage of surprise. We hit them fast and hard before they can call for reinforcements." Serena nodded, her mind racing through the possibilities. A full-scale assault would be too reckless. They needed to be strategic. The goal wasn't just destruction, it was fear. The Council had believed humanity was weak. That belief had kept them complacent. But if they realized too late that humanity had regained its strength, panic would spread through their ranks. That panic would be the first crack in their control over the galaxy. She turned to Admiral Hale, who had taken her place at the tactical station. "Can we disable their communications before they send out a distress signal?" Hale's fingers danced over the control panel. "Already working on it. The moment we're in range, we'll scramble their transmission systems. They won't even have time to scream." A cold satisfaction settled over Serena. The Council deserved far worse than what they were about to receive. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. For too long, Earth had been abandoned, treated as nothing more than a forgotten world. That ended now. The order came swiftly. The fleet accelerated, silent and deadly. Within seconds, the first wave of attacks began. Massive energy beams lanced out from the warships, slicing through the vacuum of space. The Council's patrol ships barely had time to react before they were vaporized, their shields proving useless against the sheer firepower of Earth's ancient fleet. The outpost itself shuddered under the assault. Explosions rippled along its outer hull as the fleet's weapons tore through its defenses. Warning lights flashed inside the command center, alarms blaring as the council officers scrambled to respond. But it was too late. The humans had come, and there was nothing they could do to stop them. Inside the council outpost, panic spread like wildfire. The station commander, a reptilian Carville named Freckle, stared in horror at the destruction unfolding before him. His species had always considered humans to be beneath them, primitive, weak, unworthy of the stars. And yet here they were, their ships cutting through the council's forces like a blade through flesh. His claws trembled as he barked orders to his crew. Send out a distress call. Now, we need reinforcements immediately. But no response came. The communication systems were dead, silenced before they could even be activated. Vreichel's blood ran cold. This wasn't just an attack, it was a carefully planned execution. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were making a statement. Back on eternal vengeance, Serena watched the battle unfold with calculated precision. The Council's forces were crumbling faster than expected. The Warfleet was simply too powerful, its technology far beyond what the Council had assumed humanity still possessed. She could see it now, the terror spreading through the enemy ranks. They had thought this was an easy war, that humanity had already been defeated. But the truth was, humanity had just begun to fight. Kane's voice broke through the tension. We have them. Their defenses are failing. Serena took a breath, her hands tightening into fists. Good, but we don't destroy them completely. Let some of them escape. Kane raised an eyebrow. Escape. Why? She met his gaze, her expression cold. Because they need to tell the others what they saw. Let the Council hear the fear in their voices. Let them know that we are coming. Kane understood. The destruction of one outpost was not enough. The real weapon here was fear. The Council had always ruled through power and intimidation. Now, humanity would turn that same tactic against them. As the last remnants of the Council's forces flooded into the darkness of space, Serena turned back to the fleet. The battle had been won, but this was only the beginning. The war had just begun, and Earth's fleet would not stop until justice had been served. The Warfleet drifted through the wreckage of the Council outpost, its massive hulls illuminated by the dying fires of the battle. The first strike had been a success, but Serena knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not ignore this attack. They would retaliate, and when they did, humanity had to be ready. Inside Eternal Vengeance, the atmosphere was tense. The crew worked tirelessly, scanning the wreckage, collecting data, and monitoring for any incoming enemy reinforcements. General Kane stood at the central display, his sharp eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the surrounding space. The destruction of the outpost had sent a clear message, but it had also made humanity a target once again. Serena paced the command deck, her mind racing with possibilities. The Council would never admit their fear publicly, but she knew that somewhere in their high towers, the ruling members were panicking. They had believed Earth was long broken, that humanity's power was a thing of the past. Now, they were forced to face a reality they never expected. Humanity had not only survived, but had returned stronger than ever. Admiral Hale approached with a report in hand. We intercepted fragments of distress signals before their communications were fully disabled, he said. The Council knows something happened, but they don't have the full details yet. Serena took the report, scanning the contents quickly. That gives us time, she murmured. But not much. We need to decide our next move before they send a response fleet. Kane folded his arms. They won't send a small force this time. They underestimated us once. They won't do it again. Serena nodded, which means we have two choices. We either prepare for a direct battle, or we strike again before they can regroup. The room fell silent as the officers considered the options. A direct battle meant open war. The fleet was powerful, but the Council still controlled vast resources. If humanity was to win this fight, they needed to keep the enemy on the defensive. One of the officers, a strategist named Lieutenant Darrow, leaned forward. "What if we don't give them time to prepare?" he suggested. "If we strike a major target before they can organize a response, we might be able to destabilize them even further." Serena's mind worked quickly. Darrow was right. A second attack, launched before the council could even understand what had happened, would send shockwaves through their ranks. Fear was already creeping into their leadership. If they realized they had lost control of the war before it even started, it could turn the tide completely in humanity's favor. Kane nodded in agreement. "We hit them fast. Another target. A larger one this time. Something that will make the entire galaxy pay attention." Hale pulled up a tactical map of council-controlled space. "There's a key supply station on the outer rim," he said. "It's lightly defended, but it's a crucial hub for their fleets. If we take it out, we disrupt their ability to mobilize a large-scale counterattack." Serena studied the map. The station wasn't heavily armed, but its destruction would send a clear message. More importantly, it would weaken the council's ability to strike back quickly. She turned to her officers, her voice firm. "Then that's our next target. We'd move immediately." The crew sprang into action. Orders were given, coordinates locked in, and within minutes, the fleet was on the move. Engines roared to life as the warships accelerated through the void, leaving the ruins of the outpost behind. Hours passed as the fleet traveled through deep space. Serena remained on the command deck, her mind never resting. She thought of Earth, of the people who had suffered under the Council's rule. This war wasn't just about vengeance. It was about freedom. Humanity had been caged for too long, treated as an inferior species by those who feared its strength. Now, the time had come to break those chains forever. As the fleet approached the supply station, sensors detected movement. A small group of Council ships was stationed near the facility, unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon them. Kane grinned. "Looks like they didn't learn their lesson." Serena's expression hardened. "Then let's teach them again." The fleet moved into attack position, silent and deadly. The war had just begun, and humanity would not stop until justice had been served. The war fleet moved like a shadow through the vast darkness of space, closing in on the Council's supply station. The station was massive, a floating city in the void, surrounded by ships loading and unloading precious resources. It was a vital hub, keeping the Council's military running. On the bridge of eternal vengeance, Serena and General Kane stood side by side, studying the holographic display. The supply station's defenses were minimal. Clearly, the Council hadn't expected an attack so soon. Admiral Hale smirked as he analyzed the enemy fleet. "They still think they have time to prepare." "They don't." Serena nodded. "We hit them fast and hard. No warnings, no mercy." Kane's deep voice carried across the deck. "We cripple this station, and the Council's entire war effort will slow down. They'll be vulnerable." Serena took a breath and turned to her officers. "Launch the attack." Across the fleet, weapons powered up. The silence of space was shattered as the first wave of missiles streaked toward the station. Explosions erupted as the outer docking bays were torn apart. Fire and debris spilled into the void, and chaos broke out among the Council forces. Enemy ships scrambled, caught completely off guard. Some tried to flee, while others attempted to fight back. But the war fleet was too fast, too precise. Laser batteries rained destruction on the defenders, cutting through hulls and turning enemy ships into burning wrecks. Serena watched as the station's shields flickered, barely holding against the relentless assault. The Council's arrogance had made them slow, and now they were paying the price. A desperate message came through the comms, a panicked voice crackling through the speakers. "This is Captain Lorne of the Council Defense Fleet. We surrender. Repeat, we surrender." Serena's expression remained cold. "Disable their ships. Leave no escape." The war fleet executed the command flawlessly. Precision strikes tore engines apart, rendering the enemy ships helpless. Within minutes, the battle was over. The once mighty station was in ruins, and the remaining Council forces were at humanity's mercy. Serena turned to Kane. "Prepare the boarding teams. We're taking control of whatever supplies remain." As the troops mobilized, a thought crossed her mind. The Council would know about this attack soon, if they didn't already. This victory was another message, another reminder that humanity was no longer weak. The war was escalating, and Serena knew the Council would be forced to respond. But that was exactly what she wanted. She wanted them to come. She wanted them to fight. Because this time, humanity would be ready. The Council's response came faster than expected. Within hours of the assault on their supply station, long-range sensors detected a massive fleet moving toward the sector. The Council wasn't wasting time. They were coming with everything they had. Serena stood on the bridge of eternal vengeance, eyes fixed on the holographic display. The enemy fleet was enormous, at least 3 times the size of their own. Dozens of warships, carriers, and dreadnoughts moved in tight formation, their weapons primed. This wasn't just retaliation. This was extermination. Admiral Hale exhaled sharply. "That's more firepower than we estimated. They aren't playing games." General Kane cracked his knuckles, his expression unreadable. "Neither are we." Serena's fingers tightened around the edge of the command console. "Let them come." The fleet moved into position. Earth's warships spread out, their dark hulls reflecting the distant starlight. Every system was running at full power. Fighters were prepped in their launch bays. Artillery cannons hummed as they charged. Every soldier aboard the fleet knew what was coming. This was the battle that would decide everything. As the Council fleet closed in, a message came through. The voice of Grand Marshal Varen, the Council's supreme military leader, echoed through the bridge. "Humans, you have sealed your fate. Your defiance ends today." Serena smirked. "We'll see about that." The battle began in an instant. The first wave of Council ships opened fire, unleashing a storm of plasma bolts and missile barrages. Explosions tore through space as shields absorbed the impact. Then the human fleet struck back. Railgun slugs, traveling at near-light speeds, punched through enemy hulls with terrifying precision. EMP blasts disabled Council cruisers, leaving them defenseless against swarms of human fighters. The void filled with fire as warships on both sides were torn apart. Serena's fleet moved with brutal efficiency. They had trained for this moment, studied the Council's tactics, and adapted. The enemy was powerful, but they were predictable. Humanity was not. Aboard Eternal Vengeance, Serena's mind worked at lightning speed, issuing commands, directing strikes, countering enemy maneuvers. Every second counted. General Kane's voice cut through the chaos. "Their flagship is vulnerable. If we take it out, the fleet will fall into disarray." Serena didn't hesitate. Target the flagship. Full assault. The war fleet concentrated its firepower. Missiles, railguns, and energy cannons ripped into the Council's command ship. The massive dreadnought trembled under the relentless assault. Fire erupted from its hull, and escape pods launched in every direction. Then, in one final explosion, the Council's flagship was no more. The moment it was destroyed, the enemy fleet hesitated. Their coordinated attacks became scattered. Their formation broke. Some ships tried to flee. Others fought blindly, desperate and leaderless. Humanity had done the impossible. Serena stood on the bridge, heart pounding. Chase them down. Show them no mercy. Across the battlefield, human warships pursued the retreating Council forces. One by one, enemy ships fell. The once mighty fleet that had come to destroy humanity was now reduced to wreckage. The battle was over. Serena exhaled, feeling the weight of victory settle over her. They had won, but she knew this was only the beginning. The Council wouldn't stop. They would regroup. They would come back, stronger, angrier. But so would humanity. And next time, there would be no escape for the Council. The wreckage of the Council's fleet drifted through space, burning debris scattered across the battlefield. What had once been a powerful armada was now nothing more than shattered remains, lifeless husks of warships floating in the void. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Aboard Eternal Vengeance, the bridge was silent, save for the quiet beeping of status monitors. The crew, exhausted yet victorious, watched the holo-displays, tracking the last of the retreating enemy vessels. Serena stood at the center of it all, her gaze locked on the fading remnants of the once mighty Council fleet. "Status report," she said, her voice firm but calm. Admiral Hale scanned the data feeds. "Minimal losses on our side. Some damage to the outer fleet, but nothing we can't repair. The enemy, they're broken. Their forces are scattered. We destroyed their flagship, and without leadership, the Council's forces are crumbling." General Kane crossed his arms. "They thought we were weak, that they could wipe us out like an afterthought." His eyes darkened. "Now they know better." Serena exhaled. "They know we're not just survivors. We're a force they can't control anymore." The holo-display flickered, and a transmission request appeared. The Council was calling. The bridge fell into a tense silence. Admiral Hale raised an eyebrow. "After everything, they still have the nerve to call us." Serena nodded. "Let's hear them out." The screen lit up, revealing the face of Grand Chancellor Orvos, the highest-ranking official of the Galactic Council. His once proud expression was now filled with fear and desperation. Behind him, chaos reigned. Alarms blared, officers scrambled, and the Council chambers shook as if under attack. "Humans," Orvos' voice trembled. We must negotiate. This war, it does not have to continue." Serena leaned forward, her eyes cold. "You didn't want to negotiate when you tried to wipe us out, when you betrayed us, when you thought we were powerless." Orvos swallowed hard. We underestimated you." General Kane scoffed. "Underestimated?" He took a step forward. "You slaughtered our people. You destroyed our worlds. And now that your fleet is in ruins, now you want to talk." Orvos' face twisted with panic. "We had no choice. The Council saw you as a threat. Humanity was advancing too fast, too unpredictable. The other species feared what you could become." Serena's grip tightened on the console. "And now they have their answer." Orvos' voice broke. "If you continue this war, billions will die. Entire civilizations will fall into chaos. You have proven your strength. Please, let this end." For a moment, silence hung in the air. The crew watched, waiting for Serena's decision. She took a slow breath. "We are not like you, Chancellor. We do not kill for power. We do not conquer without reason. But we do not forgive betrayal." Orvos shuddered. "Then, what do you demand?" Serena's voice was like steel. "The Council is finished. Disband your rule, step down from power, and let the galaxy decide its own fate. No more oppression. No more control. The era of the Council ends today." Orvos' eyes widened. You can't be serious." Serena's gaze was unyielding. "The only other option is your complete destruction." The Chancellor hesitated, then lowered his head in defeat. "Very well." The screen cut to black. The bridge remained silent for a long moment before Admiral Hale finally spoke. "It's over." General Kane nodded. "No, it's just beginning. The galaxy will change forever after this." Serena turned to face the crew. "Humanity was left for dead. They thought we were helpless. But today, we remind the galaxy who we are." She looked out into the vastness of space, where Earth's war fleet now stood unchallenged. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget.